alaikum everyone. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about a new topic, which is called methods. So basically, a function in math is called methods in Java. So a function, for example, that calculates a GPA for a student is called a method that calculates GPA for a student in Java language. The function or methods, they have other names or terminologies depending on the language that you are coding. However, so far we are just coding with Java. So in Java, it's called a method. And so far you have basically seen some methods, but we didn't focus that it's a method. We just called that it's a function. So for example, if you remember the math.pow method, which calculates the power of two numbers, it's a method which is implemented in Java. Also the math.random, the char at, the length, all these are methods which are implemented and they do something. So let's start with a method that performs the power of two numbers, power of a number. So we can use the math.pow method, which is predefined and have used it before, but we will not use the predefined method and we're going to implement our method, which is called, for example, power or whatever. However, let's just recall what's the math.pow does. Basically, you give it two parameters, if you remember. So for example, if you want to say 2 power 3, we say math.pow 2, 3. And then this method does something, and we have the output, which is, for example, 8. Okay, how this output comes and what the method does is actually what we're going to implement today. However, let's once again focus that we give it two inputs, which is the base and the power, which is the 2 and the 3, and we expect a number to be returned. You should know exactly which inputs do you pass and which output you get, and their data types, because every method or every function needs the input and the output data types to be known. So for example, let's try to implement the power method. However, it's our method, not the predefined one. So far, you have always used a method which is called the main method. And from semester 1, you see that you always write the main method, and you cannot have a class with a main method not there, and it will run, it will give you an output. So far, we need the main method to be implemented in the same class. Inshallah, after that, we can remove it, but so far we need it. So let's just go through the main method signature. So far we say public, static, and those two keywords, they are written in blue, which means that they are predefined keywords in Java. And we will know the, let's say, the description or what they mean of each keyword, but later, not today, inshallah. And then it comes the keyword which is called void. And void means that the method does not return anything. So when we call the main method, actually it's called by its own. However, we don't expect anything from the main method to return. However, it does something and it does not return anything. If you have a method that will not return anything, then we say its type is void, which means that the void is the return type of our method. So far we have the void, which is no type, which is no output will be returned. And then we have the name of the method, which is here called the main. And then we have these brackets. We should have them for every method that you have. And between these brackets, you have the input, depending on what inputs does this method expect. So far, you can see that it has an input which is string, and then square brackets, and then args. You will see, inshallah, later what does this input mean. However, it takes as an input an array of string. These square brackets means an array of type string, and this array is called args. I will not go further into this. However, later you will know each and every keyword, what does it mean. So This is a method which is called the main method. And you need to have it in our class. However, we are going to implement another method which performs the power of two numbers, and we'll see the output. To do this, we will implement our method. And so far, we are stuck with these two keywords, which is public, static. So here we're going to write public, static, and then comes the return or the output type. When we ask for a power of two numbers, what do you expect as an output? You expect a number, so I say 2 power 3. 2 is int, 3 is int. I expect the output to be int. You can give it as int, you can give it as double. However, here let's try to give it with an int. So I expect to have the output which is 8, which is of data type int, so you write int. This is our output, our return data type, the data type of the result. Okay, and then comes the name of the method. Whatever name you would like to have, just write it after our output data type. Anything. I can say, for example, power. Okay, this is the name of our method. And then comes directly our input. The input, you write it between these brackets. And do not forget the curly brackets, the ending and the closing curly brackets. Okay, in the input, first of all, do you expect an input or not? If you want to perform the power of two numbers, then I expect to have two numbers. The first number, which is the base, and the other number, which is the exponent or the power. So if I say 2 power 3, I expect to have as an input 2 and also 3. If I say 4 power 10, then I have an input also 2, which is 4, and then 10. And the order differs. So for example, I will have the first input, which is, for example, 2, and it's of the data type int. It can be double, however, here we'll make it as int. And here you give the input a name, not 2, not 3, it's just a name, like a variable. It's a parameter passed. So I say, for example, int x. X will be, for example, the 2. If you want to add another input, then you separate the inputs by comma. So I say int x, comma, int y. And I understand that, let's make a comment, that the x is the base and the y is the power or the exponent. Okay? Okay. If you want to perform the operation of the power, what do we do? For example, if I want to say 2 power 3, it means that 2 is multiplied by itself 3 times. So I have something like 2 times 2 times 2, right? If I want to say 2 power 5, then I will multiply 2 by itself 5 times. So I say 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 5 times. Okay, basically, if I say 2 power 10, then I want to multiply 2 by itself 10 times. So basically what we're going to use here is a loop that loops from 1 to the number of the exponent. And what happens inside the loop is just multiplying the result by itself y times. Okay? So most probably we'll need a counter, or we can use the for loop, if you remember the for loop, which does the same thing. However, we need for sure a result. So we'd say int result equals 1. And then we'll say for int I equal 1. And I here is our counter. And the condition is I less than or equal to the exponent, which is called here y, and then I plus plus. Or we are going to do is the multiplication or the base as we saw, which is result times equal what? Times equal the x. Okay? Because the x in our example is the 2. So what we are going to do is we are going to multiply 2 by 2 by 2 by 2, and we are overwriting the result variable. So it starts by 1. Why is it 1? Why not 0? Because we are multiplying the result by itself. The result equal, this line means that result times equal x means that result equal result times x. So if the result is 0 from the beginning, this value will always be 0. That's why we should have it as 1 to be able to store the value. Okay, so far it's good. However, here, if you want to get the output is result, right? Okay. If I want to see the output, to see the result, which is supposed to be 8, if we're going to pass 2 and 3, we should have a keyword which is called return. And then you return the output that we want the users to see. Here, the output is stored in a variable which is called result. Okay? Okay. Why do we need to have a return keyword? Because from the definition of the method, you said that you are going to return an int. Where is that? From this keyword. Because the keyword that comes after static is the return type. Here you say that you are going to return a variable of type int. So this means that the result should be of type int, and here it's of type int. Okay? Okay. But so far, I can't see anything. I can't see anything because I didn't call the power method. So how to call the power method? You can call the power method anywhere in the class. However, so far, we can call it in the main method. So for example, I want to say perform the operation of 2 power 3. So where is the 2? Where is the 3? You can have an int, for example, a equal 2, int b equal to 3. And then you want to print the result of 2 power 3. So we say system.out.println. And then here, you are going to call the method that you implemented, which is called power, and give it the inputs that it needs, which are 2 inputs, and both are of type int. So here we say power of, this means the input, which is in the bracket. And then what are the variables that you want to pass them as an input? Basically, they are the A and the B. So here you say A, comma, B. Okay? What happens here is you have the variable which is called A, and it's initialized by 2, B with 3. And then we here come to the third line, which is print statement of power, which is a call of a method of A and B. So here we pass A, we pass 2 as A, and we pass 3 as the B. And here the compiler checks whether we have a method which is called power in our class. Yes, it found it. And another thing is, he checks whether the power method takes as input 2 inputs. Here we pass 2 inputs, which is A and B. Here it checks, does it take as an input 2 inputs? Yes. However, here they are called int x and int y. It doesn't matter. They match 1 to 1. So here A will be matched to x, and B will be matched to y. And x is of type int, and A was of type int. Y is of type int, and B was of type int. So far it's okay. And then we check the data type, the return data type. So the power function returns as an output an int. And this integer will be printed in the print statement, which is okay. So here if you compile, it compiles correctly. And if we run, we expect an output of 8. And hopefully, yes, we get it. So what happens is, the first thing that happens is the compiler goes to the main method and tries to perform what is inside the main method. So here we initialized and declared the variable A with 2, B with 3, and then we come again to the print statement. We here found a call to another method which is called power. So this is not a value to be printed. It's a call to a method. We call the method, perform what happens inside, and then the return value will be returned here and it will be printed. So another thing is, we can just say power of, not A and B. We can say power of, for example, 4, 3. Here, this means that we did not use the A and B with anything, which is okay. What happens here also is, we're going to call the power function and pass 4 and 3. So 4 will be x, y is the 3, and here it performs the operation. So if you compiles, and if we run, it gives 64 as an output. Another thing is, we need not only print the output. So you can store this output in another variable. For example, assume that we want to perform the power of 2 and 3, and then add on this result 10. Okay? This means that I need to get the output of 4 power 3, and then add, or 2 power 3, and then add whatever number. So this means that I will not call the function in the print statement. However, I'm going to call the function on its own. I will say power of, for example, A, B, and this output, and this function, this method, it returns an output, because we know that it returns an int from the signature of the method. So I need to store, you have two options, whether to store the output in a variable or to print it. Okay, here I want to store it because I want to use it after that. So I can say int, for example, whatever, z equals power of A and B. If we here try to print the z, we say system.out.println z, it prints 8. And then if you want to add, for example, 20 plus this output, so we say z plus equal 20. And then if you want to print the z once again, we expect an output of 28. So it's completed, and if we run, you have the 8, which is the result of 2 power 3, and then you have 28, which is the result of 2 power 3 plus 20. Okay? So for the methods that return something, whether it's int, by the way, this can be int, can be double, can be Boolean, depends, of course, on the method and what it does, what operation that it performs. However, it can be on any other data type. It can be string, can be anything. However, if this method returns something, so you have the keyword which is called return, you have two options. The first option is to store this output in a variable, and this variable should be of the same type of the return value. So here we return int, so this variable should be of type int. You cannot change it. So for example, if we say Boolean z equal power of A and B, you have an error. It says cannot be applied to Boolean, int, because the function, the method returns an int, not a Boolean. Okay, and if we say, for example, what here? If we say string or char or whatever, you have incompatible data types. Okay, because here you store a string, and however the method returns an int. Okay, this is the first option, to store the value in a variable. The other option is just to call it inside a print message, inside a print statement, because at the end the method will return a value, and this value will be printed directly. Okay, this is if the method returns something. Assume what you want to do is a method performs something. However, we do not want to return any output, so I will keep the output for myself. For example, I want to perform a method which performs the power operation. However, I do not want the users to be able to store the output and manipulate it afterwards. So to do that, we will not have a return statement, because I don't want to return anything. So you should remove the return line. However, from the definition, if we just call this this is an int. Let's remove that. If you're gonna compile, you have an error. Okay, it's this int a equals 2, int b equals 3, and then if you're gonna compile, yes, you have an error which is called missing return statement. How does the compiler know that it's missing? It's missing because in the definition of our method, we said that we were gonna return an output, and this output is of data type int. Here, the keyword int means I'm going to return an output of data type int. If you do not want to return any output, then you should change the output type to be void, like the void of the main method. So void means that this method will not return anything. It will perform an operation, but it will not return you an output that you can use afterwards. However, so far, it will not give us an error. However, it's meaningless because you performed an operation, but you do not show it to me. So here, if I want to show an output and I don't want to return it, then you can just say print. So I can print the output, which is here called result. Okay? So a void method does not call or does not return anything, so you don't need to have a return keyword. However, to show the output, you can show it with a print statement. Okay, how to call the method, which is of type void, which does not return anything. You just call it on its own. Here we said, the other one we said int z equal power of a and b, because we expected the power of a and b to return a value, and this value is stored in z. However, this time, our method does not return anything. So what you will do is, you will just call the function or the method, which is called power of a and b. And the output will not be stored in anything because there is no output. It will print the output inside the method itself. Okay, so let's try to compile. It compiles, and if we run, we have the 8. Just notice that the 8 is printed not inside the main method. It's printed inside the power method, which means that if in the power method, if we remove this line, which is to print, let's see what's the output. You have it's completed. However, there is no output because you did not ask anyone to print. If you want to print, then you should write the print statement, and it should be written inside the method, not inside the main method. Because the main method, we do not have any output here. We just call the method. Okay? So let's compile once again to see the output. And here we have the 8. Okay? Okay. Another thing that I want to say is the appearance or the order of the methods in the Java does not differ, which means that the power method need not be to be before the main method, which means that we can remove the power method and put it after the main method, and it will give the same output. So the order does not differ in the Java. Okay? Okay, another thing is we can have multiple methods in the same class, and depending on which method you want to use, just call it. So here, for example, if in the main method I did not ask to call the power operation, the power function, it will not be called, and I will have nothing. So I can just compile and run, and nothing happens. Why? Because yes, you have the power method, however, you did not ask to call it. Remember the math.pow function or method. Remember the math.random. They are there. However, if you do not call them, they will not do anything. Okay? So I can have many functions or many methods in the Java file. However, depending on which function or method that you want to use, just call it in the place you want to use it. Okay? Okay. Let's do another exercise. And it's called exercise, it's called maximum. And you'll find it in the practice assignment. It's exercise 4. So here, you are asked to perform three methods. The three methods are called maximum, okay? And why do we need to have three methods? Because we want to compare first two integers and return the maximum of them. This is the first method. The second method, to compare two double numbers and return the maximum of them. And the third method, you have two strings and you return the maximum of them. We'll see what does it mean, the maximum of a string. However, let's try to have, or let's just think about having methods with the same name. Can we have methods with the same name? It cannot stop the statement like this, because I can say public static. If I want to declare a method, we just say public static, and then we say the output, which is for the first method, which returns or which performs the maximum of two integers. Most probably it returns an integer because it's the maximum of these two integers, which is an integer. So we say public static int, and then we say max. And then comes the input. We cannot have more than one method with the same signature. Say it once again. We cannot have the same method. We cannot have more than one method with the same signature. Why is that? Because assume that I want to say maximum, call maximum. Okay, and you have three methods which are called maximum. Which one should I call? So we have a signature for a method, and this signature includes the name of the method and its inputs. This is the signature of the method. We do not care about the output because it does not signifies the method. However, what's very important is the name of the method and its input. So for the first method that we want to use, which is performs the comparison between two integers, we have maximum, okay, and the input is of type int. So we say int, for example, x, comma, int y. This is the method's signature. I cannot have more than one method with the same name and with the same number of attributes, which are the inputs, and the same type. So I cannot have another method like this. This cannot be done. I should change something. If you want to keep the name of the method the same, it's okay, but you should change something in the input. Whether data types, whether the number of the inputs, you should change something. I do not care about the output. Once again, I don't care about the output. I only care about the name and the input. Okay, so let's just remove this. And let's perform the first method, which is the maximum of two numbers, and we return the maximum of them. Can we say something like this? Return in only one line. We'll say return. You want to perform the check of x and y, right? And we say x greater than y, question mark. Do you remember this signature? This is the conditional operation, remember? So if x is greater than y, I should return x. Otherwise, I should return y. Is it okay? Okay, I will do the same thing. However, I should apply it for a double. So here I say public static, not int, I will return a double. Max, because it's the name of the function or the method, and you should write it as max. However, I should have some difference between the first method and the second method. Once again, if you should write the same name, then you should change something in the input. And in our case, we do not expect two integers once more. Now we expect one input as double, for example, x, and the other is double y. Okay? However, the body is the same. So return, I will first check If x greater than y, I return x, else return y. Okay? Let's just first call these functions and then methods, and then we'll do the string one. So I will not call the power method because I don't need it now. And what we need to do now is to call the maximum. So I will say system.out.println, and then I will call the method which is called max and give it the inputs. Okay. If I want to return the maximum of two integers, I already have here two integers, which are a and b. So I can say max of a comma b. Okay? And then I will say max of (3.4) and 5.6, for example. Let's try to think what will happen if we call the first operation, which is the max of a and b. When we call max of a and b, what happens is we go to check whether there is a method which is called max, and it takes as an input two inputs. So here we find a method which is called max and takes as input two inputs. However, we also find another one which is called max and take as input two inputs. Okay, then we may have some confusion which method that should be called. Here comes the second part which is, okay, here we have two inputs, but these inputs are of which data type? Here it's a and b. A and b were both of data type int. So for sure, we are going to go to the maximum function, which has two inputs, and these two inputs